So I've been replaying Skyward Sword. I've been replaying Skyward Sword. It's been a while. And I need to accept something that I could not accept before. Something that I denied. And I must simply accept. The game is very good, and I need to say it. I need to say it. At this time, I must come and I must say it. It must be said. Because for a long time I had opposed it. I had denied it within myself, and whenever I do this, I need to again remind myself of why I should not never deny something you know to be true. And I would play Skyward Sword, and I think I've beaten it twice. And I have a good time. Customization, good. Controls, workable, and eventually I'm having fun once I get into it. But then I would look back and say, oh, the structure is problematic. And you see, you return to these areas over and over, and not very good. Combat compared to the other games is problematic. And those complaints are not invalid, but to let them, just completely deter any other qualities I saw in the game is simply unfair, simply not true, because when I play it I have a good time. I knew that was the case, yet I would just not say it, and I must say it. I must say it. We're not even talking about the plot right now, because the plot is good. The plot is very good. Like, like, best opening in the series. Well, I mean, Wind Waker is like opening with the... It's probably better. Yeah, it's better. But, like, gameplay, cutscene, story opening. Not a, like, recap thing. The best. Like, seriously, you're gonna tell me not as good as the others. Like, the music. The music is excellent. The music is too good. Oh, the music is very good. The entire soundtrack is very good. I'm not sure how good. Probably better than Twilight Princess. Skyward Sword is that in a lot of cases. Better than Twilight Princess. It's difficult to say what's better than Wind Waker. On the music end. Gameplay end, no. Wind Waker is king. Wind Waker is king. I must talk about that sometime. Wind Waker, the highest. I used to say Wind Waker was like, oh, there's like a top 3. Link to the Past, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker. Wind Waker is above. Wind Waker is above. Wind Waker is its own. I didn't accept that, and I have. I have accepted it. I've come. I've accepted it. But, like, I'm just not even gonna get started. Like, the plot is great. The dialogue, best in the series. Best dialogue in the series. Best written dialogue in the series. Characters, very good, very memorable. I don't have anything bad to say about that. Good. I'm actually wearing green today. Like, this is like a green jacket. Doesn't really look like it in the video. Whatever. I tried to wear goofy, adventurous clothes, because, Zelda's kind of like that. But, God. Okay. Let's just, go point by point. So, combat. The main critique with combat is basically the motion control. And this is going to, revolve a lot around this. So, this is what this is what I've said. There are 3 people who dislike Skyward Sword. The low IQ, who don't know how the game works. People who didn't like the structure of it, which is fine. They found it repetitive, or they found it dull, or they found it too hand-holdy, or they found it took too long. That is fine. If you're impatient, or if you don't like hand-holding, or if you like a more non-linear structure, that is okay. This is the Ego Raptors. Ego Raptors, not low IQ. He has his reasons for disliking Skyward Sword, and they are mainly within the structure of the game, although he has, of course, problems with the motion control, which leads into number 3, which is people who cannot adapt to or do not like motion control, which is also fine. Ecoraptor is probably in this camp too, although he seems to complain more about the structure of Skyward Sword rather than the controls of it, I find. So, let's talk about combat, because combat does revolve around the motion control. And in terms of the motion control, there are several things I can say about this. One advantage, kind of an advantage of Skyward Sword, is that it's one of the only like Wii games that uses motion control for things that could not actually be done with a controller, at least not as well. Like Twilight Princess, for example, the whole swinging of the Wii remote basically was just the absence of a button press. On the GameCube, all it was just pressing B. Pretty simple. Now, granted, I prefer Wii Twilight Princess to GameCube Twilight Princess. I think it's better. You can aim the bow with more detail. The swinging I find fine and kind of fun. It's mainly just because of the bow. Bow, very epic to actually aim with the Wii sensor instead of using the first-person aim. I also found the first-person aim in Twilight Princess the most awkward out of any of them. So Wii version makes it way better, way more epic. I could actually just go and aim without even targeting, which I can't do as well in other games to the same extent. So, in terms of aiming, Wii Remote helps. You see that in like Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition, most people think is the best version, as do I. You can aim with the pistol with good detail. Now you can get on that part with like the weird escalator kind of thing. You're going down on this I guess it's a mine shaft or something, going down, and you're supposed to use a sniper rifle. On the kingly Wii version, the real man's version, you can just use the pistol. You can aim with the Wiimote that good. And good. So Skyward Sword has that. You have Wii aiming, which helps for things like the beetle or the slingshot or the arrows, which is the case. Although Skyward Sword, one thing it does, which did piss me off initially, was that you can't target and aim anymore. Targeting basically only affects the sword. And besides that, if you're targeting and using an item, all it does is allow Link to strafe and do side dodges like he does. You can't actually do like a targeted attack. And for me, I don't like that. I honestly don't like that. I don't see the point in doing it. To an extent, it's good because it puts more emphasis on the Skyward Strike, but it also means that it's more difficult to use a lot of your tools, which is a problem a lot of people have with Skyward Sword, is they don't know how to use their tools in combat. They end up using their sword a lot. And Skyward Sword is a game where you can be helped a lot by using your different items. They have a lot of different purposes, and that's great. But the way that you can't target things and use it makes it a little cumbersome to use, which I will admit is a flaw. Twilight Princess does not have that. None of the other 3D Zeldas have that, so it must be said. But, barring that, the items are very useful and have many different uses, and I love that. The slingshot is very good, and you actually get to use it in comparison to the bow. Although even later on, it's fine. The scatter shot, epic. This great range, radius, and it stuns enemies. And in a game Skyward Sword, where most enemies require a specific sword pattern or way of attacking to even damage them, a stun is very useful. And you can use them on like Boko blends, or you can use them. You can use it on small enemies, like those little, I guess, scorpions or whatever on the ground. You can use scatter shot on them. You can also use the whip on them. The whip and the slingshot, basically, from what I can tell, have the same damage value. Where if a slingshot will kill it, the whip will kill it, which is something not a lot of people get. I see not a lot of people use the whip at all. I think the whip is actually very useful. Great mid-range weapon that you can just throw out, because you can't target things with the whip. You can target things with the whip. You can't with arrows or the slingshot or anything like that, but you can with the whip, thankfully. So whip would be very awkward if you could not. Of course, the whip doesn't have a first-person mode, which is probably why that is the case. Claw shots really are just used for grappling. They aren't actually really used for combat that much. Less so than even Twilight Princess, because Twilight Princess kind of hurt it. Wind Waker, the main thing I used the hookshot for was hookshotting onto certain enemies and then jump attacking them in the face, which feels great to do. But the combat application of the hookshot really was mitigated since the N64 games. which might be for the better, because they still had the boomerang and things like that. I don't know. But the hook shot I actually think is kind of underused in Skyward Sword, besides using it to like platform. Which to an extent is good, because again, it puts more emphasis on the other tools which you might not use otherwise, like the beetle, or the slingshot, or the whip. Although again, many people don't use them. But do use them. Skyward Strike, also use it. Yeah, like seriously, anytime I see a Boko Blin from afar, I just Skyward Strike, and then hit him on the floor, finishing blow. And the only time I will not do that is if there's a crowd of them. But I just see one of them, I do that. Works every time. And of course, because in the beginning, it takes a decent amount of hits to take out the enemies. And they block you. And they actually do a decent amount of damage. Most enemies early on do like a full heart of damage. The Dekubabas and the Bokoblins, I believe, both do a full heart of damage each. And yeah, you have 6 hearts to begin, but for a Zelda game, that's kind of high. You know, full heart of damage per hit. That's usually like a mid game kind of. Usually it's like mid game is full heart, and then end game is like 2 hearts per hit. So, and that is one thing about it is Skyward Sword is actually it's known for hand holding, and it does fly, you know, but I can call it fairly difficult. I think it's more difficult than Wind Waker. I might even say it's more difficult than Twilight Princess. Yeah, I would say so. Twilight Princess. The thing is, I have like a warped idea of difficulty in Twilight Princess because I wear the Zora armor all the time, so I'm always taking like triple damage to fire and ice attacks. But if you're not, they actually don't do much. Most ice attacks do like a quarter heart, and then the fire arrows tend to do like a half heart. Wearing Zora armor, that's like tripled, so, you know. But, Twilight Princess without that, you don't take that much damage, except for Shadow Beasts. In Twilight Princess, they do a heart per hit, even regardless of the timing. So, like, the first time you fight them, I've actually died several times at that point, because I just take pot shots, and the wolf can't block, and they do a heart per hit, so 3 hits, you're dead, so. But, Skyward Sword, I think, is actually like decent difficulty, and it of course has a hero mode. It has a more difficult mode, which allows you to use like the whole full power Skyward Strike, which I guess is cool. I mean, for me, I don't care much. I always find enough ability to use the Skyward Strike, even when it charges slow. Just strafe backwards and hold it up, right? Charge it while you're going backwards if you're in a combat situation, and you can just charge it before you go into attack an enemy. It stays on your sword for a good amount of time, so. But, I mean, speaking of that, I do love the Skyward Strike. Love the Skyward Strike. Not only do you finally get a proper sword beam in the 3D games, we've waited this long. I mean, yeah, you have Fierce Deity, which was just an adaptation of the, I guess it was the Ura Zelda sword beam bonus you were going to get. But we haven't had a sword beam. We haven't had a legitimate sword beam, and Fierce Deity is just like a boss mask, unless you use glitches. So, this is real, and I love it. Love the Skyward Strike. Love using it to do what's the equivalent of a Great Spin. Love using it to just shoot a beam and knock enemies over. Like, that's just such a good feeling. You see an enemy in the distance. Skyward Strike, he'll either run towards you or you run towards him. Hit him. He flops over. Finishing blow. It feels so good. It feels so good to also get past the whole blocking stuff. So one thing about Skyward Sword is when you use alternative methods to take out an enemy, it's not just basic sword attacks, it feels even more rewarding than other games because you know, they can block you. So you get past that annoyance. And it is kind of annoying. But, you know, that makes that aspect even more rewarding. So what else was I saying? Oh yes, I said the low IQ. And by that I mean people who just don't know how to play the game, haven't looked enough into the game. You know, and it's like for me, if you fail at a game because you can't just look enough into its most basic mechanics, and then you blame the game for yourself not even wanting to try learning it, well, I mean, we've been into this debate a lot. People who hate Sonic games, Egoraptor among them, although again, I have put Egoraptor out of this because he is high IQ. He just has there's a love for kind of a legitimate structure and belief in dependability of the player, which I think is completely fine. But I don't think that makes a game which does not follow those conventions horrible. And here I am defending Skyward Sword, so there you go. But, it's like people who don't know the Shield Bash or things like that. It just hurts me to see when people just run in swords blazing and they don't know the Shield Bash and they get their shield destroyed, and then, I mean, technically you can blame the game for not explaining that to you. Although I do think it explains it properly. But, yeah. And, except for, of course, the almighty Yuri of Wind. He has his shield broken, but he's an eternal king. I will never bemoan the great Yuri of Wind. He is a king. He's too good, but he loves the game anyway, so I don't even need to bring him into this, other than the fact that he's epic. Watch him. Yes. But, I was going on with the whole upgrade Skyward Strike and the hero mode. I don't really bother with hero mode in Skyward Sword. The upgrade Skyward Strike allows you to get some Goddess Cubes earlier. But, I mean, speaking of that, you have Goddess Cubes, which brings me into the other thing, which is the world. And this is one thing I've been wanting to do. I'll do this later. I will do this later. But it's comparing Wind Waker and Skyward Sword. Everyone, like, Oot and Twilight Princess, very close, and of course Twilight Princess takes from Oot, so comparing them is fun and easy. But Skyward Sword reminds me in structure a lot of Wind Waker. And I've always had that feeling. And I'll make a video about that. And I will talk about that, because there's a lot to talk about with that subject beyond the scope of this video, because I take my time with everything in the case of these videos, but, that must be mentioned, that must be spoken of. But, I think my cat wants in. But, what else did the boss fights, I guess, yeah, boss fights, the world and the boss fights we gotta talk about. So, bosses are epic. Bosses are epic, even for the more annoying ones. The Imprisoned is still pretty epic. First boss, good. Girahim, good. And I have many theories about Girahim. I'll throw out my theories about him later when I make my video on the Zelda timeline, my personal opinion on it. But, barring that, good first boss. Because it's story integrated. He gets this epic introduction. Love his introduction. I love how he hams it up. Love how you get that kind of character. Goofy character like he is. Fun character. But then you fight him. And I like how he kind of challenges the basic aspects you've been learning. Granted, you can only use the sword against him. So, you need to aim specifically where his hand is not, or in the opposite direction of where his hand is, to hit him. And that challenges your ability to aim your sword, which is a good first boss to go with. He also has this thing where he shoots these little knives at you, and you need to swing in the direction they are going to reflect it back at him. So it rewards you for being able to aim your sword properly, which I think is the proper design for it. Of course, the sword combat is emphasized. And the first mini-boss as well, Stalfos, also emphasizes that. And it's kind of interesting because the beetle is the item you get in the dungeon, but you don't use it on the boss at all. And Skyward Sword has that in several cases, where you don't really... Dungeon items are not emphasized in the same way they were previously. The structure is varied a bit, which I'm surprised Egoraptor does not mention this, because He seems to like this idea when it is none. Skyward Sword, some places have heart pieces, some do not. You go back to dungeon in one case, and it's different. It's different enemy placement and all that. The hell? Phone? Who's phoning me? No one. God, ignore that. Second boss, you use bombs. Third boss, you semi-use the gust bellows, but it's mostly a sword fight. Good variation. Kaloctos is legendary. Kaloctos is one of the best bosses in the entire series. Like, even people who do not like Skyward Sword, I've never heard anyone talk down that fight. Never in my life. It is epic. Wonderful. You use the whip properly. You use the whip. You take his arm, swing it, and that feels so good when you're actually physically swinging it too. Twilight Princess got that in a couple of moments. That is where you get it. I mean, Twilight Princess, you have that whole moment where you'll like get onto a boss's weak point, and then the music will hype up, and you're like, you know, well, you're stabbing it in the game, but in the game you're all hypes me up, hypes me up, and the GameCube cannot recreate. The GameCube cannot recreate. Wii Twilight Princess is better than GameCube Twilight Princess. I will say it. I'll make another video on it. Well, a video on it, because I haven't made one yet. But yes. But, in the case of it, the bosses, I think, are well varied. Good bosses. Very good, especially after Twilight Princess, it had kind of like a lot of dull bosses who had the same weakness, which is use dungeon item, stun, hit in eye, which is every boss except, I guess, the guy at the end of City in the Sky, who instead of having an eye has a little rainbow gem on his back. Same idea though. There was like the Goron on fire who also had he had an eye. It doesn't look like an eye, but it is when you shoot it down. But yeah. Okay. So all the bosses are good. Girahim's second match, epic. I love how it's like Girahim is the first dungeon boss, and then he's the last dungeon boss. In essence, last dungeon. You have Sky Keep, but it doesn't have like a heart container or anything like that. It's kind of may as well be counted different as far as I'm concerned. But you have that. And to be honest, I wish you had a second Girahim fight in between those. I really wish that after the third dungeon, when you get the epic cutscene where Link interrupts in the trailers, of course, step, and then it cuts, and it's Skyward Sword title, and it's very hype. But I honestly wish you had a Girahim fight there. The only reason Girahim would not fight Link is because he needed to like rush to find Zelda's location or something. But she got away from him. So as far as I'm concerned, with how angry he was, he should have just tried that fight. And I would have loved that. If you had a fight there in the Temple of Time on that bridge, and Girahim was like shooting his knives, you're like, too good. But no, cannot happen in that case, which is okay. But would have been great if you had an actual fight there. But all the Girahim fights are good. All the Girahim fights are good. Kaloctos is amazing. Tentalis is like, it's good in scale. It's just the rudimentary aspect of it. Shoot arrow and then run up and slash him. It's rudimentary, but it's exciting. It's not bad. Not bad. Yeah, I like all the bosses. Well, maybe we could talk about the story. If I wanted to, we can talk about the story. And I've said this. I needed to deny it, but I will no longer deny it. It cannot be denied. This is a true and proper celebration of the Legend of Zelda franchise. The opening cutscene, I already went on about it. Like, yes. Yes. Oh, is it fan service? I don't care. Like, this is a 25-year-old, 30-year-old franchise. You are not expecting fan service? With a canonicity this big? I do not care. I do not care. This is high quality. This is good. No, I love how Zelda is characterized. Because you actually care about it. And that's kind of interesting going on to another thing, which I will go on about. But, no, the whole romantic thing in there, which it's a thing in there. Too kawaii, dog. Too kawaii. Just too much. Like, it's, too kawaii. Very good. But, that also gives you, proper desire to actually, like, help Zelda in the game. Because you like seeing that. And of course, it's kind of funny because, like, by the time I got to the whole scene where Zelda goes into crystal mode, it had been so long since that beginning, all that kawaii, romansa. I kind of forgotten about that, so I was kind of weirded out by that whole scene. But then again, I was like, how old was I? 10 or 11 years old or something, so, I only comprehended it so well. But, now, kawaii desu, loving it, great. I mean, you get that kind of awkward scene where, and everyone knows it. She's got her arms on her back, and she kind of walks up to Link and kind of like pushes her like breasts toward him. Kind of awkward. Kind of always awkward. Never not been awkward every time I see it. Every time I see it, man. Every time I see it. But everyone gets hyped for any like Link Zelda romance, any other game. This is the game you want to look at if you want to see it. This is where it's actually at. And that's kawaii, and that's why besides that, I don't care about the romance in the game because it's not really there. And it's not emphasized, and it doesn't need to be. Like seriously. God. All these people are obsessed with these like video game romances where there's like nothing. If there's nothing, then don't get hyped about it. If you want to be hyped about these things, go watch like a romance anime. Speaking of that, watch La Corda d'Oro. Watch it if you're into that. If you need something a little bit more basic, watch the quintessential quintuplets. Give that a shot. Give that a shot. Oh man. As a 3D Kanojo, 3D girl, like give that a shot if you really need it. But let's see. Okay, the world. Yes, the world. I said I was reminded of Wind Waker, and I am, and I will say, what I find interesting is like the goddess cubes. The goddess cubes to me are kind of like a a more simplified like treasure chart system from Wind Waker, but they're simplified to the point where people will actually get the treasures from them, which is good. People use goddess cubes. A lot of people in Wind Waker don't know how treasure charts work and don't use them, which I feel bad for those people because they're the ones who needed to suffer under the wrath of Tingle. But I love treasure charts in Wind Waker. Absolutely love it. It's one of the main reasons I love Wind Waker's game and structure oh so much. Routing Wind Waker was just such a joy. Lining up these treasure charts and this works here and I'll have this much by the point I'm done here and ah, 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 ah. So good. So good. I love Wind Waker. But Skyward Sword basically has that on like a neutered kind of level. Goddess cubes, you activate it in the world. Very easy to see them, usually. And then they fly up and then you just go to where it is. Open the treasure chest, there you go, here's your reward. Much simpler. It's not Wind Waker where you open the treasure chart and then you need to line it up where it is on the island, which means you probably need the island to be charted already. And then you need to go there and line it up and then dig, pull up the sunken treasure, and then there you go. A lot easier to comprehend. A lot easier for IGN to comprehend, which is why IGN loves it so much. I am not IGN. But Good system, love it, and I love all the rewards you get. You get all that equipment, and yeah, you have the little adventure pouch system, and you're limited in collectibles. I think that's fine though. I think that's fine though because of just how many things they had in Skyward Sword. I think it's fine the way it worked, and it also makes bottles more varied better because before I would get bottles, I would just get you can put other resources in bottles. You can use all these specific potions, stamina potion, air potion, these things, which I do use them in the game. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Very enjoyable to use those things. You know, and you have like the life medals, and you have these things, and the shield you need to keep on, which is fine. I love the way the shields work. I I love the way the shields work. Shield bash is king. If you need a simple answer, Skyward Sword's combat and using your tools is too complicated, shield bash. That's what my first playthrough taught me. Shield bash stuns like everything very well. But besides that, besides that, I love upgrading. You don't know how much little visual things like that in the game just make me love it. First time I played Final Fantasy, and I saw that your weapon changed design depending on which one is equipped. Too good. I was just so hyped at that. Little things like that hype me up so much. Skyward Sword has plenty of that because each thing has a different visual design as you upgrade it, and I love that feeling. I love the feeling of upgrading like that, customization like that. Feels so good. Feels so good, and the fact that you can be prepared in that way. You can get back to Skyloft, and the way Skyloft is a very good centralizing hub of those things, which is something Wind Waker lacked, I would say. Technically, you have Windfall, but very good in that regard. Very good in that regard. Absolutely love the customization. And there are occasions where I will farm materials. I have really bad luck with monster claws. I always have, kind of. First playthrough didn't. Every playthrough after that kind of did. But I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Farming in Zelda is nothing new. Wind Waker, you would do it if you were not a treasure chart maniac. Probably. Zelda 1, have fun. Link to the Past on occasion if you kind of aren't the best. It happens. Majora's Mask as well. Definitely can happen. But I'm fine with it. I have enough patience. I've grinded in Zelda 2 before. It's all fine. But I love the way it was integrated. And to be honest, you don't even need to farm so long as you have a little luck. As long as you aren't like very badly unlucky, you should get most things you need to be upgraded throughout the game. As long as you you probably should. Probably should be able to. Honestly, the only people who do not are people who don't stop and smell the roses. IGN, who just rushes through, or people who purposely are rushing through. Either one is fine, I guess, but for me, it's getting those little collectibles that is most enjoyable. Skyward Sword is actually a very fun game to 100%, I would say. I have fun 100%ing every Zelda game. I actually think it's very enjoyable for all of them. But Skyward Sword, very, very nice to 100% like that. What else is there? Is there anything else? Talk about the control, talk about combat is with that, talk about combat affected that, talk about the bosses, talk about the world. I don't really talk about the plot much, I don't think I need to. Talk about that when I make my timeline video. I think for now, we can call it quits on that. Half an hour is a decent amount of time. I really need to make like a 2-hour video sometime. Anyway, that will be all for me. Thank you very much. Even for the people who hate Skyward Sword. If you do hate it, like I said, if you are in the anti-motion controls camp, or you are in the impatient / don't like the structure camp, those two things, you are completely fine. But if you can't like the game because you can't learn enough about its basic mechanics, I mean, for me, I've always watched Zelda walkthroughs like all the time. That's why I always do that. I just love being optimal too much to play it blind, especially with Zelda. So that's me. Yeah, but yeah, those opinions are fine. But this is my opinion, and I used to be kind of in your camp as well, but I just can't deny it anymore. I played it, I enjoy it. I just it must be. I must say it. I must say it. I need to say it. I enjoy it. And the main part of the game I do not like is just that collecting music notes underwater. No. But besides that, I had a good time. So yeah, I'll leave it for that. I'll leave it like that for now. I'll leave it like that for now, and I can talk about the one thing about structure I was forgetting is the whole you go to the same area multiple times, but meh. You go to a new area within that area, which completely changes the way the gameplay is operated, usually. So, meh. I won't count that. Farewell.